All right. So I wanted to do this really mini exercise to so you're going to actually have to do this before you do this. So you're seeing kind of a sneak peek of what's coming. But I want to kind of cover some really basic modeling and how to use ProBuilder and Unity and stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a basic crate here. So I'm going to go to Tools, ProBuilder window, and I'm going to go to a new shape here, and I'm just going to create a cube by dragging out a box. And this is just going to be a crate. And let's go to our object mode here. I'm going to hit R, and let's center this as well. Well, I could scale it from the floor. It's just going to be a small crate that we can stack like a box. So let's check the size by moving it close to our main character. I'm going to hit F to focus. And so something like this. Now, what we'll do here is I'm going to go ahead, let's scale that out well, we can go to face mode, is probably the best way to do this, and just play with this size. So what I'd like to do is create a mirror material for this box and also make a game object out of this, or a prefab. So inside of our art folder here, I'm going to make a new folder just for these mini lessons that we do in class, and just going to call this prefab. And I'm going to rename this cube to crate. And I'm going to drag it inside of this prefabs folder. So now we have this crate prefab. Now what I'm going to do is pause the video, and I'm going to go online, and inside of Google, I'm just going to type the name crate texture. All right, so actually I typed it in Bing. It's the same sort of thing. And you can see here that we have a couple different texture types. These are just free online that people want to distribute. So I clicked on this first image, and you can see here we have this crate texture. You could see it as a stock image thing, because I guess you're supposed to purchase it if you want the the one that isn't edited or whatever. I personally don't really care because I would probably paint my own, but this one looks pretty nice. So I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to go to Save Image As, and you can see it's a JPEG format, and I'm going to name that crate. And let's go ahead and click on that to open the file. And yep, sure enough, we have our crate image. So I'm going to go back into Unity here, and inside of this prefabs folder, I'm going to create another folder here, and I'm going to call this crate. And this is what's going to store our crate object, which is the prefab we just made, which is here, and our essentially our texture. So I'm going to right click on here, and I'm going to go to Import New Asset, and I'm just going to select that crate image and import that in. Now, what a prefab essentially is it is a game object, but it's kind of a way of storing or saving when you do a lot of edits, or you add a bunch of these different components. So for example, I can add a script component to this crate object, and this crate here inside my project is connected here. But I can add an additional prefab here. Like I can add a component where I can add like this basic rigid body push box script, right? And now what's different is it'll store, or it'll save that I added this component there. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this component for a second. What I'd like to do too is I'd like to right click and create another material here, and I'm going to call this crate material. And what I want to do is I wouldn't worry about that. That's has to do with my thing. You can see I have a crate here, but what I'd like to do is I select my crate here, and I drag this crate material on there. And now you can see in the scene, it's also updated here. Now, with this crate material selected down here, you can see there's a base map section. This is where you could drag in your textures and apply it. Now you could see that it now has this crate material attached to this cube. I don't like this pattern. I want it to have this crate be as big as that face. So I'm going to go into my UV editor here, and now you can see I have my crate material here. And what I can do is I can select this face here, and I can move it around like that. So I'm just going to center it here, and I'm going to hit R, and I'm going to scale that down. Another way of doing it is you can select these verts, but the problem is sometimes your material or your texture will disappear. And all I'm doing now is just lining this up. You can see that. So I can select this face here, and you can be like, wow, okay, that looks pretty good. You can also kind of click on this and hit convert to manual, and then planar that, and it'll center it a little bit better for you. And then you hit R and you just kind of scale that down. Do the same. We can go to edge mode here, grab those edges. I'm gonna grab all three and hit R, scale them, and just line them up on the edge there. I think I have to use vertexes. It doesn't seem to like that. Yeah, so sometimes you have to double click the whole thing, or just, let's see if I can highlight the whole box. Yeah. And then I have to convert it all to manual. And then with that, it'll allow me to, I think, edit those stubborn faces there. Yeah, see that? So it was just because they were on different style or different types of ways of manipulating or editing it. Auto being like it'll do what I'm doing now automatically, but that doesn't necessarily give you the results you want. Whereas manual can allow me to go in here, select the face that I like, hit W, and just scale it or edit it how I like. Remember when manual was on and I was trying to move those faces, it kept snapping. So something like this. And I think there's one more face. Well, there's two more. So what I'm going to do here is just grab this, drop it on top of, this is probably the front and the bottom. So if I hold shift and I select both of these, you can see they're both selected. Hit R, scale them both in. All right, so now we have a crate. Now what's cool about this is, and one of the most powerful things about a prefab, actually let me close that out for a second, is we have a crate prefab here, right? So if I hit Control D here and I move this up and I rotate this, and I'm like, you know what? This crate is actually it's too big. So I'm gonna hit R, scale that down. And then when I go over here to overrides and I hit apply all, you can see it scales down the one below it too. And so what they'll do is this, in theory, essentially, is it's just sort of like anything you do to one of these crates, you can do to others. Something else that's cool is, remember I was telling you that like, by having this as a prefab, we can add extra components. So one component that's pretty neat is you have this rigid body component, which is this right here, which adds physics to an object. So now when I press play, you can see it falls down. But the thing is, it's also missing a box collider. And the box collider is what's going to wrap around the surface to provide a collision. Now, if I press play, something weird's going to happen. It's still kind of, oh, you know what? It looks like these had a box collider on them. Oh, they all had mesh colliders. So I needed to have that onto the box with the rigid body, but they're missing the rigid body. So I can actually select these, or select this one and just hit apply all. And now you can see that each one of these has a rigid body. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and save my scene, and I'm gonna check this into version control so I don't get that error that we had before. Yeah, and so this is kind of like before we get into doing this house, which is a little more advanced, here's a neat little exercise, which could also be tough, especially if you're still trying to navigate everything to get going.